How's it going, YouTube? Long time no see. Ryan here from Jonga in beautiful Melbourne, Australia, as I look over the city view from my apartment. Coming at you with a deck profile. So this deck profile is I came first place at the Victorian State Championships for 2025. And I got really inspired by a video done by Shunping in relation to his Fencing with Ryzeal profile from one of the recent YCSs. That was kind of like a long story time, a lot of context. So I'm going to break this video up into a few different parts. Just for you guys out there who need a deck list and need it quick, that'll be at the start. And then I'll go into more detailed history and thought process of just everything that went into, this 10-0 victory, and all the work that culminated into it. So it's really going to be a fun time, I hope. All right, let's jump very quickly into the deck profile. Okay, so a very quick speed run of the deck profile for you guys right now. So 2 Ext Ryzeal, 2 Ice Ryzeal, 2 Sword Ryzeal, Star Ryzeal, and Node Ryzeal, of course. For the Heraldic Beasts, 2 Griffin, 2 Leo, 1 Stad Whale. One fun card I like to use, Sakitama, helps to reduce the redundancy of 7th Tachyon. The 2 Nemesis cards, Praise Lord Protoss, Flag, and Protoss. Hand Traps, or Charmies. 3 Fua, 2 Perulia, and a Meows. Other Hand Traps, Ash Blossom, of course. Drawn Lockbird, of course. And then 1 Bell, because you need something to draw into of your more Charmies. Again, more maximum copies of Ext Ryzeal, 1 Bonfire, 3 7th Tachyon, and 3 7th Ascension. The 2 advanced Heraldry Arts that I searched off the Stad Whale, Ryzeal Cross, Ryzeal Plugin, the new Trinity, Triple Tactics Talent, Call by the Grave, Crosshat Designator, Plasma Hole, and Infinite Impermanence for the trap cards. Okay, for the extra deck, Ryzeal Friends, Detonator, 2 Duo Drives, the numbers, Masquerade, Dugaris, 18 Heraldry Patriarch, and 69 Heraldry Crest. Now other situational XYZs, Exciton Knight, Tornado Dragon, Evilswarm Ouroboros, the send targets of our friends Ext Ryzeal, Myriologic Aggregator, and Eclipse Twins, further inboard pieces, Baguska, Star Liege to protect from targeting effects, Antitidalian, Flame Banshee, such as Ryzeal's, as well as Search's Nemesis cards. Alright, now for the side deck, Protoss's twin brother, Eschatos, 2 copies, the 3rd Meows, the 3rd Perulia, 2nd and 3rd Meows, 3 Artifact Lancia, of course, along with the Seraph to search it, Feather Duster, because I like using this card, and the 5 Solemn cards are going first, where usually 5 more Charmy cards go out. Alright, now let's jump into a detailed card by card deep dive. Okay, so just to start with, we'll do what most people would be most unfamiliar with about the deck, which are the Heraldic Beasts. So a very old archetype, who they've gotten a little bit of support over the years, but nothing too extreme. However, before that history lesson, I'll run through the history in the story time later on. We'll just go through, a detailed card by card analysis here. So Heraldic Beast, Stad Whale. This card is very, 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 very strong. So there's 2 effects. The first effect is when it's normal or special summoned, you discard a card, and then you search 2 Heraldry spells and traps from your deck to your hand. So you have to search 2, so you just can't search up to 2. So it is kind of unfortunate when you draw this card. Sometimes you don't get the full value off the whale. However, sometimes drawing this card is still very good. If we don't know, Advanced Heraldry Art, this is really where it all began. Came out in Abyss Rising in 2011. So it's been a long time in the background for this archetype. Not once per turn. Target 2 Heraldic Beast monsters in your graveyard, special summon them, then immediately XYZ with them. Incredible card. Had a bit of a renaissance lately in hat format, I believe, as well, the old Heraldic Beasts. So yeah, your Stad Whale, such as your Heraldry Art, And then when this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it at your graveyard to target 2 Heraldic beasts of the same name in your graveyard and special summon them. So that is really important as it banishes itself for your Nemesis flag. That was the key of this deck, really what put it all together for me. So to pair with the Stadwale and the Heraldic Arts, we've got 2 Leos and 2 Griffins. So Leo is a very classical 2000 attack beater with a negative effect. During the end phase of the turn it's summoned, it's just destroyed. Normal summoned, that is. There was a game where I revived these guys in defense mode with my whale, so I didn't die when I got dimensional barriered. So that was really good. But this guy is a once per turn when it hits the graveyard from anywhere, so even as XYZ material, you mandatory search a Heraldic Beast monster. So it is, funny, mandatory activation. If you've gone through your entire deck, you don't get a search. But your opponents have got to trust you on that one, which is totally fine. Then Heraldic Beast Griffin. Similar to Mathmech Circular. So for cost, reveal it in your hand, send a Heraldic Beast from your deck to the graveyard. Sometimes that is Leo. There are very rare cases where you put your whale back in your deck with your Nemesis flag, so then maybe on turn 3, your Griffin dump the whale, so then you can whale again, summon back the Datu Leo. So then you do that, and then you special summon Griffin, but during the turn you do his effect, and also the turn where you do Stadwale's effect to revive from the graveyard, you can only use Heraldic Beasts and number monsters as Exceed material. So the only demerit, the only bad part about this is that you obviously can't make a Ryzeal Detonator. However, you can still make Duro Drive, you can still make Banshee, you can still make Baguska, Starliege, Dugaris, you can still make a lot of powerful rank 4s. So, it's not too much of a downside. And then on top of that, if you do play the Ryzeal Plasma Hole, then you can leave 2 Ryzeal bodies on the board and then XYZ into a Detonator on your opponent's turn. So even just with your 1 card Griffin, like there is an argument where you could play 3 Griffin, and then sometimes the whole thing about, having 2 of the same name becomes kind of easier when you play multiple of them, because even though it can be quite awkward because you really want to normal summon Stadwale, so you can't always normal summon Ice Ryzeal, unlike, just hard opening Ext, because obviously the secret why this deck is so good is Ext Ryzeal sends number 18 Heraldic Patriarch, and so the Patriarch is similar to Leo. When it's sent to the graveyard, it doesn't matter where it's sent from. You send 2 Heraldic Beasts from your deck to the graveyard. And this one is not once per turn. And that does come up. Like, that is very relevant in the full hand loop combo. Spoiler, this deck does seek to hand loop your opponent. But when we break down the individual combos, we'll get more into the specifics of that. But this is a mandatory. It's got to send 2. Like, it can't just send up to 2. It's got to send 2 Heraldic Beasts. So sometimes drawing any one of these can really throw off that combo. Again, it's not the worst. Sometimes it's salvageable, but you just have to be very careful when you're activating or resolving effects. And then, so the whole other issue with, obviously, you want to, the first time I use the Patriarch, I always send double Leo, because they usually don't Ash Leo search. If they know what your deck does, they should Ash the Stadwale. That searches the art. But then obviously if my whale gets impermed or ashed, then I want to be able to detach the whale from Exceed, put it in the graveyard, so then it can always summon back the 2 Leo. So the essence of the strategy, or the way that you can kind of use a general heuristic to understand what this does, is that if you resolve your Griffin, so activate Griffin, dump Leo, summon Griffin, search Whale, discard a card, search 2 of these, you've got 4 rank 4s. Because assuming you can detach both of the monsters from this Heraldry Art, which is very easy with Dugaris and also very easy with Duro Drive, then your Griffin and your Whale make 1 XYZ, your Heraldry Art makes another, your Heraldry Art makes a third, and then the Whale banishes something back to it and may make a 4th. So they're similar to Ryzeals in that respect, where like a single Ryzeal usually equals 3 to 4 rank 4s. That's the super main appeal of the deck. You can do incredible rank 4 pushes off just one card. They come at a great price, of course. You are playing, colloquially referred to, bricks. I prefer to call them anchors because you're not playing this deck if you're not playing these cards. So it's a bit of a disingenuous point because you're going to say, I'm going to play Heraldic Beast Ryzeal, but I'm going to play these 5 bricks. That's not, it's not... It's more like an anchor. They're weighing you down sometimes, but they anchor your strategy well. Like without them, without the potential in your deck, you might as well just be playing normal Ryzeal. And then I haven't mentioned him yet, but number 69, Heraldic Crest. His main effect is when he's XYZ summoned, you negate the effects of all other XYZs on the field. So very important to not have your detonator up when you make him. And then you use his effect to copy the name and the effect of another XYZ on the field. You copy Evil Storm or Ouroboros to do another hand loop. And then, of course, other effect of Griffin here is that he counts as 2 materials for a number monster who needs 3 level 4s. So that means your Advanced Heraldry Art can be a 1-card number 69 as well. Funnily enough, in the tournament, I didn't get to summon 69 a single time, because I didn't really get to hand loop very much. A lot of the games were losing dice rolls and going second and just breaking the boards with Engine. In the top 4 feature match that has been streamed, I was about to summon my friend here and to hand loop all 5 cards in my opponent's hand. However, he saw the writing on the wall and he scooped. So those are, that's like the individual for these Heraldic Beast cards. And of course, the key synergy is Ext Ryzeal. And then I think the deck really shines when you do play the Plasma Hole as well, because it just makes your turn 1 Heraldic Beast Griffin so much stronger, because then you can make the duo driver set up cross, but then you can freely summon like an Ext and a sword, and the sword follows follow up, or you summon summon a sword and a star sets another thing. So it's really just up to you. It's very flexible, but I really like the ability to always have a pop and then to have another detonator and have the detonator online. And then, the Ice Ryzeal point is interesting as well, because sometimes you do want to normal summon these other friends, and then say if you special Griffin, then obviously you can't use Ryzeals as material. So then it does make Ice Ryzeal a bit awkward. However, it's still Ice Ryzeal. If you don't open Ext or know where to get it, you're very much still happy to have Ice. If Ice resolves, it's still full combo. Then you can, discard this Stad Whale out of your hand via many different methods. And then you can revive it back off to Garrus if you do want to get to the 2 Heraldry Arts and to get it banished. That is a part, like, Ice and Ext are very similar. But Ext is obviously a bit better, but Ice still has its place. And you do win several games by, Ice discard Whale, Ice discard Leo. Both of those situations came up for me multiple times. And there was even a case where, I'm not sure what my logic or my reasoning was, but the Patriarch, it either got ashed or negated somehow, because I think I wanted to get the Ext search more. So I did the this on the chain 2, because usually you do this on the chain 1 this and chain 2 Ext, because this is a more valuable search, because the Ext only really represents 1 rank 4, like on the face of it. However, Patriarch into Leo, into the Whale, into the Arts, as we said, represent like 4 rank 4s. So you have to really value that one more. And so because this friend was once per turn, you reattach it with Detonator, and then you detach it off the Detonator with Star. That came up for me a few times as well. So this not being once per turn absolutely breaks that, like, just makes it so clean, because then it really just, these get out of your deck and then these get out of your deck. I don't play Dagusta Emerald. You probably could. There is a flex spot in the extra deck, like the Tornado Dragon and the 15th and the second Duo Drive are flexible options. However, Dagusta Emerald for me just seems like a fantasy luxury card most of the time, and didn't really need it, but definitely an argument where you could play it, just so you can reload these guys back into your deck, so you can keep that engine for follow-up. But then again, the Nemesis Flag, banishing, returning back that Stad Whale is another, like, it's very, very awesome part of this deck, because usually, like, you can use like Detonator to attach a Leo, or you can use Duo Drive to attach a Leo, and then Leo will search your stat whale once again, just for another free rank 4, which is awesome. And then just more about like the mindset of this deck. Obviously, the thing that really held it all together, or what like sold me on this deck, was, you know, Protoss and Flame Banshee. There was a good DB grinder video where a guy played this, and it really was like, yep, this is the last piece of the puzzle that I need. Which is why this deck is so threatening, because if your last action is Banish Whale, summon back 2 into Banshee, it's like, that can just end the game on its own. The two best decks are obviously Mitsurugi variants and Malice. So sealing off Dark Monsters on your turn, because this can break boards and it prevents your opponent from coming back. Absolutely crazy. We love Lord Protoss. Okay, so let's jump into more of another rundown about all the other individual cards in the deck. Alright, YouTube, just a short break. I thought it'd be a bit funny and a bit more natural. Video got broken up because I had to go to locals as I was filming the previous segment, and I lost a bit of time. And so now it's no longer a bright sunny day here in Melbourne. It's cold rainy day. Featuring Atticus. Atticus he's here. He's gonna enjoy the deck profile as well. So yeah, let's continue back to the other monsters. Yeah. So, Ryzeal monsters and engine. Let's begin. So obviously, Ext Ryzeal is an unbelievable card. It is one of the strongest cards ever made, I think. Starter, extender, and board breaker. And, degenerate combo enabler. Ridiculous, super crazy card. You obviously play the maximum copies that you possibly can. So we are playing 3 7th Ascension and 3 7th Tachyon. In my experience playing Ryzeal lately, since the ban list, I do find that there is a bit of redundancy. When your only target is, Masquerade for a light target, definitely did consider things like surfacing Big Jaws and the Shark Drake, but I think that was just this level of critical amount of bricks where I just didn't want to go that far. I think a more neutral option is the Sekitama, because you just feel really bad if you open well, if you open Ice or Ext and then you open one of the 7th cards. If the Ryzeal's resolve, then suddenly your Ascension and Tachyon don't do anything. So I like to have the Sekitama in my deck just for that maximum combo potential. I think the mathematics as well, opening Ext Ryzeal, it's about a 70% chance in this deck with the 9 starters in a 45 card deck. But you can treat Ice Ryzeal as an acceptable starter. Normal Summon Sword, it's still a starter. Not the most acceptable 1-card starter, but it's better than nothing, of course. And then, of course, the Heraldic Beast Griffin is also a 1-card starter in this deck. So I think the odds get close to 90% of always opening an ideal starter. I'm not sure if that's even good maths, honestly, compared to other decks. I think other decks are a lot more consistent. But then an important calculation you have to take into account as well is that half the time you should go second. And then, especially with more Charmies now in the game, drawing a 6th card, 7th or 8th, 9th card sometimes, the deck just, it's more consistent than what it seems. Obviously, you need a lot of luck, and you really can't encounter any Drawn Lockbirds. I can't express enough how painful Drawn Lockbird is for this deck. I honestly, in my 10-0 run, I didn't get drawled very much. Or when I did, it was okay. It was like game ending, or it was okay. I played through a couple. That was mainly fortunate because I opened Ice Ryzeal. And then that goes into my friend here, Star Ryzeal. I know this card gets a lot of hate in Mitsurugi variants, but it's absolutely mandatory in this deck. Mainly because it makes the 1-card combos so clean into Nib. That's very important in terms of a modern Yu-Gi-Oh deck. You need to be able to play around Nib as best as possible. But obviously the advanced heraldry arts and the heraldic beasts giving you more XCs to detach from just makes Star so consistent. I really, really, really enjoy playing Star Ryzeal. And obviously it helps you play around draw. Because you go Ice into Star, into set whatever you need. You set your Cross, or your plug-in, or your Plasma Hole. Totally great. Like, plug-in and Plasma Hole, they sort of lie in this controversial zone of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where this deck doesn't need them to function. Plug-in really just turns your hand loop 3 into a hand loop 4. It's nice with one detonator, I will admit. I didn't use it as much as I wanted to in the tournament, but I was always happy that it was there. Like, I really was. And yeah, as previously mentioned, Plasma Hole is just mainly there to make your one card, Heraldic Beast Griffin, really strong. Do not regret playing this at all. Needed it about 3 times in the opening board combos, just so I felt safe and confident in my end board. But these cards are not mandatory in this deck. They can definitely be cut down for more non-engine, or just cut out entirely to make the deck slightly more consistent. But usually, deck counts from 40 to 45. Like, as long as you're adding like an equal number of starters and situational cards as you keep going up, the odds remain pretty stable. And then, of course, Protoss and Flag. I cannot say enough how good Protoss is. I guess the story of Protoss is, it's a notorious card with myself in the community in Melbourne. I've played this in a few different decks. I'll give that more in the history lesson later on in the video. However, this is the solution to the format, I concluded. It is the only thing that can build a board and break a board at the same time. It's good going first and going second. The 2 best decks, Mitsurugi and Malice, are obviously Dark Attribute. You can always call Dark Attribute, and you don't play any Darks on your end board anyway, so totally fine. There was going to be a situation where I played versus Ryzeal, Fiendsmith, Mitsurugi, where I was actually thinking I'm going to call Light, because you can still end on Detonator, and Protoss call Light, and then you can just attach from your Detonator to keep it alive, which is excellent. And in that matchup specifically, it was just, let's not have to deal with Fiendsmith or Ryzeal cards, and let's only deal with Mitsurugi cards. I felt confident in that approach. Didn't need to do that, but really, really, really important mindset to have when playing Mr. Protoss is that this deck, pretty much everything except water, you should be able to call pretty easily. The reason why I say water, and I did play versus Crystron, funnily enough, is because the only water monster you play in your deck is either Perulia or like Stadwale. So if you're lucky, you're able to like normal summon a Perulia to call with your Protoss. But that's pretty unlikely to happen. Stadwale is weird because you have to like normal summon it and leave it on the board, so you can't like really use it for an Exceed material. And there's no real way to bring it back because, if you want to call Earth, then you just use your Whale to bring back your Heraldic Beast Leos. You probably want to do that versus Memento, so they can't use both of their, Creation King and their Fusion guy. Wind, obviously, a very obscure attribute to be calling, but you can Heraldic Beast Griffin. Fire, you play plenty of fires, like Banshee and Flag left over on the board. They just get called for fire. So if you know your opponent's on Salamangreat, for example, I say that because there's a very strong Salamangreat one trick down here in Melbourne. So, yeah, flexibility is key. And then I guess the benefit where it's not like so blind is that you are trying to hand loop. So if you're Ouroboros-ing your opponent, you're discarding cards out of your hand, you should be able to see what deck they're playing, so you can call with your Protoss accordingly. So overall, incredibly solid strategy, I think. It won me so many games. Countless games. Every single game on stream, really, was won with a Nemesis card, which was fantastic. So let's move on to the hand traps and such. Okay, so let's see here. So we've got the Molcharmies. So 3 Fua, 2 Perulia, 1 Meows in the main deck. This is my, I guess I call it the 6 Molcharmy ratio of choice. I'd say especially in this deck, you absolutely have to play Molcharmies. Not just because they're level 4, in that your best cards of 7th Tachyon mainly make you go neg. They put you a card down. So if you wanna try and be up as many cards as possible when you're going second, because you know slamming 7th Tachyon into boards is not the best feeling in the world, and of course Fualos is, I guess, the new boogeyman Maxi of Yu-Gi-Oh. I will admit I don't hate it as much as Maxi, but it is still very strong. You can still play around it. It's much more fair overall, like net positive for the game. The more chummies are. Maybe eventually they could be semi-limited. However, I don't mind them currently. And then, like, Perulia in some decks is stronger than Fualos, which is really funny. However, in the current format, especially with, like, Malice, there's a lot of Malice lines that don't lose very hard to Perulia. And a lot of, like, pure Mitsurugi and also, like, Ryzeal Mitsurugi, where they don't really have to summon very much out of the hand at all. I found that it was easier to play around than what I thought. So that's why Meowth got, I guess, in the 6th slot. Because a lot of people go, like, 3 Fua, 3 Perulia, but I think the 6th slot is Meowth. Just because Meowth has the added-in utility, you're able to draw it into the board of Malice and Mitsu decks, and it can trade at least 1 for 1 sometimes, which is really nice. Versus Malice, it can trade even harder, which is really appealing. And then they are all different types, and they're all different attributes, which is really important for Protoss. The reason why Protoss and Eschatos work so well in this deck is because of the Mole Charmies. Because not just your Ryzeal and your Heraldic Beasts load up your grave with attributes and types off like 1 card. Your Mole Charmies and your other ant traps really contribute to that as well. So definitely this was the right ratio. It felt good for me. Didn't draw them as much as I like, honestly, but definitely didn't let me down. Definitely required. And then 3 Ash Blossom, because you do need stuff to draw into off the more Charmies, because if your opponent knows you don't really play Nib or Vela or stuff like that, they can just do things into more Charmies that they really shouldn't be able to do, but they do it anyway because they know your tendencies. I have a tendency of not playing hand traps, so people know who I am. It's kind of, I need to play something. Of course, Ash Blossom is the best all-rounder to block enemy Mole Charmies, and just, yeah, fundamentally blocks Saji, blocks MTP07. Draw, the other boogeyman of the format. I really dislike having to play this card alongside 6 more Charmies, but however, you literally just say, I'm just going to send it, I'm going to assume my opponent is going to negate my more Charmies, so then my draw can be good. Necessary card, unfortunately. Perhaps the power creep is getting a bit too insane with this one, but it is also just a card design philosophy. In general, Konami could just stop printing decks that rely so heavily on advanced resource loops and searching. But I don't think they're going to do that anytime soon. I guess in the future, like Justice Hunters sets, I do think that Draco Tail does pretty well under it. K9 cares a little bit more, but even then, it doesn't sound so good against a lot of the future decks. Like, even Yummy does do a fair bit of searching, but it'd be interesting to see where Draw ends up in a few months' time. I think it'll fall in and out of the format again, and then people will forget about it. But then in a year's time, there'll be another broken Mitsurugi resource loop deck that will make everyone play 3 of it again, and then everyone will cry again, including me. Yeah, this is the only card I lose to. Even last night at the locals I played, where I played White Forest Allure Queen, the only games I really lose to is when I get drawn lockbirded. So, anti-Ryan card, not allowing me to have fun. So sad. Yeah, I go Spell. And an Imperm as the last hand traps. So how many is this? Like only 14? Which is not many, but I guess Protoss, Eschatos, Ext help you break boards. Again, Imperm's mainly there because it should just be Vela, like logically. If I'm using the logic of I need to load my graveyard up with more attributes, it should just be Vela or something else, or another Bell, because Bell was really, really, really good, and Bell is good against all the meta decks, drawing it as well as opening it. But I think it was more needed with my crossout to have the Imperm there available. Didn't draw it very much, drew it one time in the finals, I believe, and I got very lucky with it. And then, of course, the Holy Trinity. Talents is a weird one. Like, you don't really need to play Talents, but I just have a real personal bias for Talents. I always enjoy using Talents. Just unholy card. I didn't cross out anyone. I didn't even open cross out a single time, but I opened Call by a lot, unfortunately. In the stream games, in the top 4 in the final. I didn't really draw any more Charmies, but I drew these friends instead. So yeah, that was really nice. I guess Crossout is really just only in the main deck because you have to have as many, you know, 1-card blowouts to draw as possible. And then, you know, I do consider all of these 3 as, you know, direct counters. Like, it might be a bit disingenuous to call Talents a hard counter, but just due to the nature of the deck and nature of rank 4s, if you get to look at their hand after you've been drawled, you can usually choose the correct rank 4 to end on. That should seal you the game. And don't worry, I've considered like Cypherham Gear Gamma alongside Cypherham Gear Delta, so Delta doesn't make the Gamma as bad, and Gamma with the Omega in your extra deck, just because you do have some flex slots in the extra deck. Just because draw is that much of an issue. However, I have a very bad history with Cypherham Gear Driver, drawing that far more than the Cypherham Gear Gamma, so much so where I think it's some sort of cosmic severe abnormality, so I just cannot do that again. I can't put myself through it. I can't put myself through that again. It's just not possible. So this was the hand trap lineup I did run into. Can't really play Nib because you rely so hard on extra Ryzeal. I just didn't want to have any awkwardness. I didn't want to have any Bestials, any Nibs. I didn't want to have to play Haggard Lizardos or SP or Donna. I didn't want to do it because, yeah, I just want to be as comfortable as possible. Like, as I said, even playing draw with Molcharmy makes me uncomfortable. And in a 10-round tournament, comfort is important. You need to have the ability to like top deck out of every situation and open good hands that don't conflict. I think that's a very big part about Yu-Gi-Oh! Very, very good mentality to have. Okay, I'm going to jump into the side deck. I will do further parts in this video as well. Side deck pattern, because it's not too hard, just the way that I've constructed the deck. It's not too hard to side in this deck. It's very easy actually, which is also a good thing, because again, in a long premier event, you need to have a clear side pattern just to make it as easy and stress-free as possible. But of course, you have to remain flexible. So this is their 7th, 8th, and 9th Charmy. A lot of matchups draw. Just I don't know what draw in my deck. I'd rather draw cards. I guess the only deck that I really want to draw is Ryzeal Mitsurugi. But even versus that deck, I go to 3 Perulia and 2 Meows, just because, especially with Perulia, you can get your value off Perulia first, and then you draw them. And then same thing with Fua, like they kind of work where you're looking for 2 to 3 draws off each, and then you may draw them. But again, you just assume the worst. Assume they're just going to get ashed. Assume they're going to get cold bite. That's it. Of course, Artifact Lancia, Boogeyman. I guess one of the main reasons why I don't play Malice, because it does leave you with an empty feeling. I think there's a lot of things a Malice player can do to like not die to Lancia, which I really think determines like how well you'll do in a tournament with that deck. But it's required, and the Seraph's required just to make Tachyon this even more of this broken god card. Like, I won several games just because Tachyon goes into an Artifact Lancia to seal the game. Feather Duster, not much explanation. Everyone knows what it does. It's a back row wipe. Personal preference. I really like it. It was pretty good for me. I drew it 1 time or 2 times. Yeah, I drew it once. Definitely a lot of games going second where I wish I had it. And like, it is competing spots. Like, I wish I could fit Lightning Storm as well, because the issue again with hand traps is sometimes thrust. A lot of decks play thrust. And this deck's other main super weakness is Dimensional Barrier. I did encounter D-Barrier once. I set up a wall of monsters. I went for Protoss to wipe the board, but it got judgmented. Kudos to my opponent for holding that. But then on his turn, I lanced him back so he couldn't kill me. And I had the wall of monsters, so I could survive, and then on my next turn, I could break the board. But not every game can be like that. I really wish they had a way to deal with Dimensional Barrier for a lot of decks. It really limits the deck diversity and playability of the game. Which, again, that sort of bothers me about Yu-Gi-Oh! As well. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, especially with Thrust. Like, Thrust, just, there's a card you can Thrust for in every matchup, in every situation. So it can be quite problematic. So much so where it's a bit demotivating to, like, even hand trap anyone anymore. But then you can't, you have to. Because your non-engine just is not good enough. Or engine versus engine nowadays is often not good enough. So hopefully the game can move in a more positive direction in that regard. So Escartos is similar, because I just realized hard drawing Protoss or Flag in most games was insane. And this was directly inspired by Carl Manigat, his pure Ryzeal deck from one of the recent YCSs. Again, you just have so many different attributes, types in your graveyard that you can banish to summon him. And then, similar to Protoss, it calls Reptile, it calls Cyberse, the game ends. And it is stronger than that Protoss as well, it's 3000. Do not regret playing this. I could play 3 of it. I wish I could fit more cards in my side deck. If I could play, I'd play 3 of this and play 2 Lightning Storm for 18 cards. Or maybe I should just put this guy in the main deck. Who knows? Who knows? It's tough. And then 5 Solemn cards. So there's usually, you take out 5 Charmies and put in these. And then verse Malice, you take out the draws as well, and then you put in the Lanciers. That's why I think this deck has a particularly strong Malice matchup, because you've got 3 Lanciers, you've got 5 Solemns, on top of having the Cold Buy, the Crossout, and the Talents, like going first. Oh man, it's like, you have such a high chance to just blank their turn in many situations. Like, because, I mean, you have 9 Lanciers pretty much. It's crazy. If you don't get drawed, you just pray you have some Judgments, you have some Solemn cards, and some XYZs. There was another approach with this deck, where you play like Thrust and Featherstorm. Featherstorm is particularly good in this deck as well, because of the Heraldic Beast Griffin is a wind-winged beast. However, the issue I found sometimes when you get drawled, you know, I didn't want to play Castel. I didn't want to waste an extra deck slot for Castel. I can, but it still feels a bit gross. When you get drawled, it's very hard to sometimes get to that Heraldic Beast Griffin, so that's not a reliable option. And then, of course, Thrust can be ashed. Like, you know, Thrust can be ashed, Sanctum for Lancer can be ashed. There are lots of other normal traps that are good, but the Solemn cards just have always never let me down. It's just a personal preference thing. And I did find with, like, Warning, like Strike, sometimes Strike can be awkward if the first action is the Mitsurugi Ritual, because suddenly they start doing things, and then they start chain blocking with their Strike, and I didn't like that. That's probably not correct logic. I think there's always a point where you can strike even after that, but sometimes you just have to let your personal preference take over. It's good mentality to have, you know, have strength in your convictions. I guess, yeah, just very quickly, going second versus Mitsu Ryzeal. As I said, I actually put in the Feather Duster, because it can come up, helps you clear cross and back row, forces purification. Yeah, then you side the 3rd Perulia, the 2nd Meows, and the 2 Escartos. So I only really side 5 cards for, like, Mitsu and Ryzeal. There are some players where I actually put in the Solemn Warnings as well, if I expect them to Featherstorm me. Out of the main deck, you're usually cutting things like Crossout Plugin, Sakitama, and Plasma Hole. They're like the 4 cards that are easiest to remove. I usually take out another 7th Ascension, because you assume the numbers when you're going second. If you have like 9 Charmies and you draw a 6th card for turn, your deck can actually be a little bit more consistent than that it is in game 1. That was a big fear of mine as well, as if my opponents just started making me go first in like games where I sided in for going second. I was actually very worried that my deck would be like more inconsistent. So fortunately that never happened to me. Okay, and now for the extra deck, just the card by card, Flame Banshee. This is super underrated just even for Ryzeal, because it searches Ice or Ext. Completely lunatic card. So unbelievably strong. Star Liege obviously offers the protection effect. Some boards where you can't hand loop and you can't Protoss. Usually if your opponent's on the ball and they don't let you get that far, you probably want to end on this, and Baguska, pretty self-explanatory. Eclipse Twins, Aggregator, self-explanatory. Ouroboros, my beloved for the hand loop. He can break boards as well, he's alright. Tornado Dragon was one of the flex spots. I do not regret playing it. It could be the Dagusta Emerald. It can be a lot of things, honestly. Exoton is absolutely mandatory. Dugaris is mandatory. Masquerade's mandatory. 2 Duo Drive and the Detonator. Obviously, you would play more Detonator if you could, but Duo Drive, you can play 1, but second one is just for extra insurance if you have to play against, you know, warnings and strikes in games 2 and 3. Alright, okay, now let's, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the card by card there, very detailed analysis. Long form content meant for, you know, the long form duelist. So I guess let's jump into, you know, a bit of a, I guess, story time, and, you know, where it started and where it ended up. Yeah. Alright guys, so story time. The purpose of this segment is I just want to provide context and history into, you know, what goes into like building a Yu-Gi-Oh deck, all the different pieces of compounding information, because in a way a lot of human knowledge and experience and, you know, time spent is built off, you know, the knowledge and the work of others. It's okay to, you know, follow the herd and go along with what's already good, but it's important that we, you know, learn from history and apply that to the right here, right now. And then it really just, I want to just illuminate the processes and, you know, how long this process was. Like, when you really break it down, if you look throughout history, just all of the work that went into, like, building a deck like this and then winning a, you know, major tournament with it. There's also a bit of an issue with, I guess, appeal to authority or results-based analysis, or, you know, the nature of doing well or topping events in general, is that most people will listen to you if you win. So I guess here's the time for, hopefully, for people to listen now. This was sort of inspired by a comment someone made to me at a locals, even last week. The idea of, you know, how do you remember all this? And there's, you know, there are crass answers to that question, but there are more serious answers as well. So hopefully this is a more serious answer of, how do you remember all this? Or how do you piece this all together? And we begin where it all began. I guess, Advanced Heraldry Art. I have watched all of the Yu-Gi-Oh animes, up to Vrains, of course. I haven't watched any Rush Duel, because, you know, age, time, just not that into it anymore. But if there was a current Yu-Gi-Oh anime with that uses modern cards, I would definitely be watching it. Then obviously he was a cool character in the anime, Tron. He used the Heraldic beasts. But it was really just, you know, their spell card, Advanced Heraldry Art, when that was released back in 2011. It was like, wow, what a cool, interesting card. Not once per turn, just monster reborn for an XYZ, essentially. That's what it was. As soon as, you know, if you could fill it up in the graveyard. And so at this point, we've already been like, we've already had the history of, say, like Light Sworn decks, of decks that if you could turbo through your graveyard fast enough to set up powerful effects, they've been noted to be pretty good. And then the very next after that, in Cosmo Blazer, I believe. Man, I'm not too sure if that was still the right set name. I keep forgetting. But Heraldic Beast Leo came out. And then again, back in the day, we were really, you know, I guess, a big fan of the idea of floating monsters. Like, we all knew how good Sangan was and which the Black Forest was. Any archetype that got a floating monster, like Heraldic Beast Leo, always really, like, pinged interest. And so, like, the resource loop was obvious. If you could, say, like, get a Leo in your graveyard, search a monster, put the other monster in your graveyard, use Advanced Heraldry Art to summon back those two, you make a rank 4, then in your opponent's turn, if your monster gets cleared or uses its effect, Leo goes to the grave again, if you to search again. So it's a cute little gadget resource loop. So, peripheral of my mind for a very, very long time. I was a big fan, but again, never really crystallized into anything super competitive. And then a good mention to here, number 69, Heraldric Crest. This card had a lot of short playability, especially in wind-up format. I remember in OCG players in wind-up format, they would be using this card to like copy Shockmaster or to copy wind-up carriers in Mighty. So this is one of those cards that exists in the game in the realm of like FTK combos, people call them, that there are heaps of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh that exist just sheer due to the simple number of cards available and the notion of a ban list that under the right conditions they will be broken again at some point in the future. And then, you know, our next friend, Evilstorm Ouroboros, is really just, he just embodies that. This card is frequently used in many infinite loops, many FTKs, famously, you know, Six Samurai FTK, loop this to mill out your opponent's entire deck, things like that. So if they make these guys easy to summon ever, it's a problem. And then adding on, moving down the history. So now we're in Dual Terminal 4. I think that was 2013. No, that was Hidden Arsenal 7. Yeah, Hidden Arsenal 7. Dual Terminal 7. Yeah, 2014. This guy was interesting. So there was Heraldry Patriarch. This card came out in TCG in World Superstars, I believe. But I'm not sure if this was a Japanese exclusive card or a Korean exclusive card. There was a short point in time where they trialed doing, as like TCG exclusives in our sets, we get exclusive TCG cards. They tried this in Japan, and there were all kinds of exclusives, like Chronomaly Nebra Disc. They got a lot of hype and were very good, but never reached to the TCG in time. There was this card, along with a spell, it's like a field spell, Augmented Heraldry, which was, I guess, similar to the future effect of Stadwale, that you would send a card to add a Heraldry spell and trap from your deck to your hand, but then it would lock you into like Psychic XYZs, and the lock was pretty brutal. But of course, like when Patriarch came out, it's like, wow, that's a double Foolish Burial. It's a generic rank 4 that just dumps your Lyra straight into your deck. So then, the wheels keep ticking. I remember on simulators, around the time where that got revealed in like OCG, I actually, because that was the same time like Exciton Knight were coming out, and number 101 Arc Knight. So rank 4s were really popular at this time. Love of Chain, of course, Dagasta Emerald, of course. All these guys, really helped, Love of Chain send Lyra straight out of your deck. And I really enjoyed the deck's playstyle. It was kind of like every turn you had a couple of rank 4s, but you were only locked into a certain type. Another interesting thing with Patriarch as well, there was like an old monster, Heraldic Beast Unicorn, that would, banish from the graveyard to revive a Psychic XYZ back. So you had a really strong resource loop with that. And then when he came back with no material, there were a few rank up magic spells. I think it was like rank up Numeron Force, that you could actually rank him up into the Chaos number 69, which was actually a pretty good card. I think it was 4,000 attack with a good effect. So that was real. So at this point in Yugioh's history, I've been playing competitively, I would say, since 2011. I mean, I started back in 2010, but in 2011, when I got my own money, was when it really started kicking off. Maybe like 2012 was when I first took it seriously. So I've already been, well aware of Heraldic Beasts since the beginning. Since the beginning. And then, I guess in the interim period of here, maybe in the Pendulum Dark Ages, for example, we saw really, penultimately, Zodiac, really take XYZ to a whole other level. They made rank 4s the best approach in the game for a decent amount of time, maybe like a year. So we just knew in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like rank 4 strategies are good simply because of the sheer amount of options available, and they kept printing them. Like they printed Tornado Dragon, they printed Dugaris, they printed Baguska. These cards all came out like I think 2017, 2018. So just before like the super postmodern era of Yu-Gi-Oh! You just got all these incremental little buffs over time that contributed mainly to Ryzeal's success, like for sure. So it's important to keep like all that knowledge, I guess, with you as you're playing and as you're moving on. And then, so Eternity Code, the Nemesis cards. Protoss was always a bit of an issue in the Sword Soul deck because it was a worm. I guess its main like Lockout Dark effect was at the time Fusion Destiny, Predaplant Anaconda was so prevalent. Just even calling this in Sword Soul mirror matches sometimes was pretty good. But yeah, super powerful degenerate card that actually ended up banning it, which I don't even think if that was correct. Like a lot of people would say that it was correct, but yeah, looking back upon it now, just about how this card auto wins is probably correct. Nemesis Flag as well, it's the target one of your banished monsters, put it back in your deck. And then search any Nemesis cards. So things like, Fairy Tail Snow, Thunder Dragon, anything that really banished your deck a lot, suddenly all the Nemesis cards were in contention. They came out at a very weird time as well. early COVID format where there wasn't really a meta game per se, but it would definitely have been classed out by a lot of degenerate Hulk combo strategies. And then it was a pyro, and of course, a persistent meme throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history as well is that pyros were criminally underrepresented and didn't really get much support, and that we were waiting for that support for a very long time. And then I guess kudos to Konami card design team. They always leave they always stagger a lot of support and a lot of clues. Like as soon as volcanic support got announced, I knew like it was coming, and then of course Bonfire got announced. But then, you know, they sneak in the Infernal Flame Banshee. So rank 4s were already good, but now we have Flame Banshee, which just searches any pyro monster in the game. So it searches Nemesis Flag. And then, of course, they printed Snake Eye, and then Snake Eye was the first like competitively meta pyro strategy like ever, which was, I guess, all part of the plan. But the thing with Flame Banshee is that I have played a lot of decks. There's mainly, you know, it appeared in Ritual Beast. Like any deck that banished cards and got a free rank 4 suddenly considered playing Protoss in it. And then that was one of the... I was never really a Ritual Beast player, simply because I had a few bad experiences of it against in Necros format. However, I did play a deck that was like, you know, it was really good in Manadium, because Manadium would get obviously banished cards for Vicious Astrolabe, and then get level 4s for free very easily, thanks to like Cross Sheep and Scareclaw Arrival. I like Hero Lives into Prisma for that very reason. And then further compounded upon that, when Fiendsmith came out, there was a combo where you would go Hero Lives into Stratos, into Search Vion, into dump Evil Hero Sinister Necrom, and then Necrom would banish itself to summon a Dusted Gold. And so that obviously gives you 2 level 4s and gives you a banished monster. I played that since it came out. I've played it for the past year since it came out. I really liked that engine. I knew it had incredible like high potential. It had a critical amount of bricks though that always really held it back. But meaning of the story, Flame Banshee was a really, really strong card. It just needed its time. And then of course we get to maybe the super postmodern era Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I do think like, you know, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Really began with Lynx, and then there was like COVID era, which really took it to a whole other level. But then I think Tearlament and Sprite is what would say is like postmodern. I think Tearlament did like irreparable damage. Like no matter how, it was good. It was a great mirror match, fan favorite deck. I love Tearlament as well, but it really changed how we perceive the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I think like people forgot like a lot of basics and like how to evaluate things properly, because suddenly everything was just looked under a lens of Tearlament, which made deck building really hard. And a lot of, I call it like, you know, the online Yu-Gi-Oh! Hive mind. Like people just, yeah, they just couldn't build decks. They just couldn't build decks anymore, or they couldn't talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Properly, because again, we've all just been like privileged to play Tearlament for so long, right? And then Snake Eye made it even worse. Like the era of the like 1-card combo deck that can do anything in the game, but it's highly flexible and resilient. That's what like Snake Eye and Yubel were, and then to a lesser extent like Tenpai, the 1-card Tenpai combos that just killed you. That's also an issue. But people forget with Snake Eye, like you could do so many different combos with Snake Eye of a single card. Crazy. Because it was always OTK. It was always so easy to do it. Yeah, people just forgot. Like, people just started evaluating cards, like, so differently. And then, that was, like, Ryzeal. When Ryzeal first got revealed, I thought it was, like, pretty average, pretty mid, pretty boring. I lent more towards, you know, Malice, because Malice was like, wow, this is a 1-card crazy combo deck. It can kill, it can set up massive boards. We forget often what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is about, which is, you know, should be interacting. It's more like, it should just be like trading big boss monsters back and forth. So, Ryzeals, while they are incredibly broken, and they are, you know, it's pretty simple, pretty boring. I found myself unusually enjoying their strategy far more than I thought I would. Mainly because the way I describe it is, Ryzeal puts you in the game more often, just because the card quality is so high However, it doesn't use excessive amounts of Omni negates, nor is it like consistently OTKing the opponent. And on top of that, it's also countered very easily. So it was this very weird amalgamation of different concepts or ideas that it was fair to play against. Like when I played against it, I felt like I could always beat it like very easily. But I know other people didn't have that opinion. And I guess Ryzeal variants made it worse because it makes it harder to stop. But I love playing different archetypes together to compensate for the weaknesses. And then, of course, you know, like Ext is just such an insane card. It's a starter, and it's a sender, it's a board breaker. It's really, really, really pushed. I do think they made Ryzeal a bit too easy. They could have taken away even just a couple of the special bonus effects, and it would still be really strong. Or they could at least make them a bit harder to use their effects. Because unlike Sprite, where Sprite is really susceptible to removal, just because the Ryzeals are all pretty much all starters and extenders on their own, makes it really hard to stop. All right. Yeah, I hope that this is making sense. Like, I feel like I'm babbling, but I guess the overarching theme I'm trying to get at here is just there's just so much, I guess, history, knowledge, combo, cards that just go into like thinking about most Yu-Gi-Oh decks. And like most of the decision making is done for you now. Like most decks get built and solved pretty quickly by people who know what they're doing, and then people just usually just follow along. And then let's talk about Heraldic Beast support, because there was actually a previous Heraldic Beast support to this. I think it was in Ignition Assault in 2021. It was like Heraldry Charge, I think was the name of the card. Which was like tribute a monster, summon 2 Heraldic Beasts out of your deck, but then you get locked into Psychic and Machine XYZs, which was a pretty negative effect. However, 2019 they released Time Thief Redoer, and then the Time Thief cards in general were really good, and they were Psychic and Psychic XYZ based, which actually had a good end board. And then the set previously to Ignition Assault, which was Phantom Nightmare, released the all-powerful Zeus. And then not only did they do that, they like unbanned Drident for a little bit. So in that period between like Phantom Nightmare and Ignition Assault, there was a lot of focus on like playing like Pure Zodiac with the 6 material Zeuses going around. And then at this time, I played for fun. I played Heraldic Beast Time Thief with a bit of Psy-Frame in it as well. Because you had like the Time Thief Regulator, which was like tribute to summon 2 out of your deck. Advanced, Heraldry Charge, tribute a monster, summon 2 out of your deck. And then you actually had some good XYZs to end on. Not only that, you had a Gravity Controller. You had a Psychic Link 1, I believe. So you'll be able to put your Patriarch into the extra monster zone and then link it off for Gravity Controller, which would, double send and start setting up your loops. And then randomly again, Heraldic Beast Unicorn. They outed your Redoer. Suddenly your Unicorn brings it back, and then Redoer starts attaching again. It was such a cool deck. It was amazing. And then getting locked into Psychic and Machine was no longer an issue because you had Zeus, and Zeus would just answer the board no matter what. I remember having like insanely weird game states where they're out, like you just trading back and forth, cards very low. Suddenly Heraldic Beast Unicorn, summon back a rank 4. Then you use Heraldic Beast Twin Eagle. I haven't mentioned Heraldic Beast Twin Eagle yet, but here's a funny one. Where you have an XYZ monster that has no attachments, you can banish Twin Eagle from your grave to target 2 other Heraldic Beasts and attach it onto the XYZ as material. I remember making an awesome comeback with this card in Zeus. So even from 2012, when I first really liked Heraldic Beast, 2021, when they got support, I was still trying to make it work. Use Psy-Frame Gamma to protect your cards from getting ashed. You could end on a Lambda as well. And then Lambda would, Redoer would be triggered by Lambda to search Gamma or Delta. It was a very nice, cohesive strategy. It wasn't competitive or anything. It was nice and cohesive. People forget rogue decks don't have to always be like meta or tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3. They can just be cohesive. Like as long as they work and the strategy works, that's good enough for me. Winning and losing, irrelevant. And then it was hilarious. When Ryzeal got released, I immediately thought of Patriarch. And then last year, in December 2024, there was one locals where I'm like, all right, I'm just going to play Ryzeal Heraldic Beast for fun. Just to use Leo and Abercornway as a additional level 4 body engine to send off my Patriarch. And then a day after I made that choice, they revealed the support. So they revealed the Griffin and the Stadwale. And then when I read these cards, I'm like, these cards are insane. They are absolutely unbelievable. They're exactly what the deck needed. Combined with Ext Ryzeal, it is now finally a cohesive strategy. 13 years later. And then I still had all the cards. I didn't run into the problem of scrambling sometimes that Yu-Gi-Oh! Falls into, where you don't have the necessary cards because they haven't been printed for so long. I didn't have that problem. My love of the game and my enjoyment of the game, I just keep cards. I rarely sell, and I really should start selling more, but to my own detriment, but often to my own benefit. Because to me, it's about the utility you get out of your money, of course. Levels of enjoyment. And yeah, it's just incredible when cards you used back then are now usable now. And then it was really interesting as well. I had high hopes for this in the OCG, but then they limited Ext Ryzeal very quickly, and that's kind of the key of the deck. And of course, in a maxi environment, it's much harder to do these things. But also, I also never saw an OCG player do the Heraldic Beasts with the Nemesis cards as well. I might exist, I just never see it. All of my social media feeds are incredibly curated for me to see as much Yu-Gi-Oh! Information as possible. That's just what I enjoy. I follow OCG YouTube channels, many pages on Twitter, just to see what they're playing. So it doesn't surprise me that it had a little bit of success. I saw it played a few times, but because of Ext Ryzeal's limitation, I can understand the reason not to play it. He is the key. Thankfully, TCG semi-limited it. I thought they should limit it, but then their approach was surprisingly good. But also now, hindsight, looking back on it, it's not enough. They need to do further limitations, for sure. So, about a month ago, before the state championship, I knew of this deck and I was testing it out. And hand looping was great. I wasn't playing Nemesis at the time. I found the Heraldic Crest issue of negating Max Wizzy monsters was a bit annoying. I'm like, man, how do I ever end on Detonator? And then, my Griffin, I just couldn't figure out the combos with getting locked into Heraldic Beast. So I had a good, decent stint with this, testing just casually. But I never played it at a locals because I just got annoyed. And then obviously I'm a big fan of reptiles and snake decks, so I played Mitsurugi variants a lot. So that was more my frame of mind, was playing Mitsurugi decks and variants. Because I had played Mitsu Ryzeal at the previous YCS, where I played too many cards in my deck, I feel, and I just didn't draw the critical amount of spells I needed to when I had the opportunity, but I didn't do it. But then maybe a couple weeks after putting the deck down, it did well in some other nationals around the world. There's a few deck profiles. A Sydney-based player here in Australia also played it, but he played it a bit different. He only played one of each of the monsters. He didn't play Nemesis. I thought that wasn't for me. I thought that wasn't very good. But then there was an MBT short that showed a really good one-card Griffin combo, and I'm like, okay, I understand how to do it now. I was, a bit naive. And then the most important thing was there was a DB Grinder video where someone was actually playing this deck. I don't know who they are, but thankful for them showing me the Stadwale Banish gets you your flag and your Protoss online. But then of course me playing the format, testing Ryzeal Mitsu, testing Malice, there was always just what is the solution? Every format is how do you theoretically solve the game right now? What is the best card? And then I arrived at Protoss because obviously it's an end board piece and it's a board breaker. It's fine to draw. You can search it every game. It was just a phenomenal card. I started testing it in Ryzeal Fiendsmith, where I would use Lizardos or SP to banish a monster. I started testing it in actual Ryzeal Mitsu, but it was a bit awkward there. Even though you would get banished monsters easily with Lizardos, you can't really Protoss call Dark because that kind of defeats the purpose of playing Mitsurugi in your deck. You can still end on really good boards, but then no. And I guess and also another benefit, just random out of nowhere, like the ban of Abyss Dweller really helped this deck out a lot as well. So piecing all these pieces of information together, various sources, about 4 to 5 deck profiles, combo videos, one card combos. It's like, all right, I gotta try this out, I gotta test it out, and then I think I won a couple of locals with it, and then I went like 3-1 and another locals with it, only because you just get double rolled and there's nothing much you can do, and then there comes a point where, you know, results-based analysis becomes irrelevant, and you get, you know, so much confirmation bias where you just have to play a deck, which is what happened for me, even though I thought maybe the deck count wasn't right, or the ratios weren't right, or I didn't do as much work on it as I could have. Like, I still wasn't that crisp with the one-card Griffins, with the one-card Ice combos as I would want to be, because the issue with this deck as well, it has the potential to just have the biggest spreadsheet known to man, because you can do a lot of the combos still under Fua, under Perulia. You can try and like hand loop them to even out the card advantage that they give. But then, of course, a whole bunch of variables increase by what cards you discard, what they hand trap you with, etc., etc., etc. So it's a very hard deck to kind of lab out. So I sort of just let my intuition take me. As well as there was one deck from YCS Providence, I believe it was, Carl Menegat, where he sided in the Esk Katos, and he was maining a lot of more Charmies, and he was maining Spooky Dogwood in his main deck. And I'm like, yeah, that's a very smart strategy, because you load up different types, different attributes in your graveyard to make your Nemesis cards really strong and consistent. Because the more I realized, like the more I hard drew these, the more I realized that they're never bad. They are always good. It's just incredible how unfair and how good they are. I guess another issue lies with, like, if you play these at a locals, you kind of know what everyone's already playing, and you're really incentivized to do some very unfair things. Which I do apologize to a few people when I know what to call versus your deck, but unfortunately, if I'm playing to win, those are the things I'm going to do. But then, even then, like, mindset aside, the entire time I was playing this deck, I just was really happy to be playing it, because simply just because of the sheer, like, you know, history and time spent using the cards. Like, you just get so happy and so much, again, confirmation bias and gratification that cards you enjoyed so many years ago, you're now using again. You know, as an adult, with a clear mind and a clear headspace. And also, like, winning or losing just almost becomes irrelevant, because the process and everything involved is already winning enough. You don't even need to have the outcome go in your favor to feel that gratification, which is really what I seek for in Yu-Gi-Oh! As long as the strategy and the methodology is good, I'm happy. I'm really happy. And yeah, man, I think that covers everything to do with the history lesson and the mindset and the approach. Nope, I remembered one more thing. Another main reason as well, like, Malice testing went well, but Malice, it leaves you a bit empty. Sometimes when you get Lanciered or Charmied and you can't really do anything. And then Ryzeal Mitsu, what an incredible deck. Like, an absolute abomination of a deck. It is so strong. So good at going first or going second. But then randomly, I kept losing. I thought I was just bad at the deck. Maybe I just suck. I kept losing to, like, my opponents just having 4 engine pieces and, like, a cold buy or, like, a talents. And it depressed me. And so I'm like, oh, I don't want that to happen again. So I'm just going to Protoss them. That was the main motivator. So I guess it's don't try and fit a wheel that's not going to fit. I don't know, an good expression. But if you're losing a lot, maybe you can take that and think about why you lose. Like, proper loss analysis in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is so important. If you don't know how and why you're losing, it's a big problem. And so, you know, if you're losing by, say, not strictly misplaying, but you're just not playing, like, you know, at the 80-90% range where you really wish you were, where you're trying to play a broken deck at, like, the 50 to 75% like competency range, and then you're losing what you think should be unlosables just because you're not playing well enough, you can either keep grinding and get good enough, but otherwise maybe seek other options. And so the option I sought was, yep, Arch Nemesis Protoss. Alright guys, that has to conclude the video, I think. Thank you so much for participating in this journey along with me. Shout out to everyone who tested with me, and thank you again. Hope you enjoy, and the video will be broken up into various parts at your leisure. Thank you so much, guys. Peace out. But how could I forget? Combo video, 1 card Ext Ryzeal, the strongest 1 card combo of the deck. It is incredible. Alright, let's begin. So we summon Ext Ryzeal by sending Patriarch. We go chain 1 Patriarch, chain 2 Ext Ryzeal, search Sword Ryzeal. We send 2 Leos to the graveyard. Then Leo will activate, searching our whale, special summon our sword. Our sword will add star. Normal summon our stead whale, discard a card, add our 2 advanced heraldry arts to our hand. And then we go on our 4th summon, we go into Evil Swarm Ouroboros, so their hand traps are already under threat. We detach from that, doesn't really matter what we detach. So that's hand loop 1. We detach again from our Ouroboros for our Star Ryzeal, then our Star Ryzeal sets our Ryzeal Cross out of our deck. So this is our 5th summon. If they nib us here, we are totally cool with that. So we activate our Ryzeal Cross, put that up on the board. Then we activate our Heraldry Art, summon back our 2 Heraldic Beast Leos, and we overlay them straight away into our Duo Drive. Duo Drive effect will attach, and we use the effect, detach 2 Leos from it to add from our deck to our hand our node and plug in. Alright, and now we overlay Ouroboros and our Star Ryzeal for Eclipse Twins. Special summon our node effect, send Eclipse Twins, summon back our Ryzeal out of our graveyard. Eclipse Twins effect, summon back Patriarch and Ouroboros, hand loop the 2nd card out of our hand, Patriarch's effect will activate again, sending our 2 Griffins to the graveyard. Next, a few different branching paths here, but the main path that I like to do is overlay these friends into Flame Banshee. Probably put this up here in the EMZ. We use Flame Banshee's effect to search Nemesis Flag. Then I'll use at this point I will use my Stead Whale effect, banish it, summon back Griffins. So now we are locked into the Heraldic Beasts, but that's fine. This treats us to material for our Heraldry Crest, negates all our execute monsters on the field. We use the effect to copy Ouroboros to hand loop our 3rd card. Now we special summon our Nemesis Flag by shuffling back our Stead Whale into our deck. We use his effect, add Protoss to our hand. Next, we summon our Protoss. Now we got to do a bit of field tidy up here. So we banish our flag, we banish our Ouroboros off the field, and we just banish. Usually I banish a Griffin or anything, doesn't really matter. So we summon our Protoss. But before we call Dark, we activate Plugin. We summon back our Ouroboros from our deck. We attach onto it. Usually it'll be the Plasma Hole, but yeah, we attach any Ryzeal card onto it. We use the effect attach, that's hand loops the 4th card out of our opponent's hand. And then at this point, then we use our Protoss to call Dark, so then that will destroy that, giving us 2 main monster zones to use our last advanced Heraldry Art. Summon back our 2 Leos. And then a few different things, but I usually like to go into a Baguska, which will turn everything to defense. But hand loop for 4, Protoss call Dark, Baguska, Ryzeal Cross, Duo Drive, and not only that, we have a draw off our Ryzeal Cross as well, so we're going to draw 1 card as well. So that's an unbelievable, super strong 1 card Ext Ryzeal combo.